UFC 324, Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett, going down Saturday the 24th of January in the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Last time I did a predictions video, I didn't do the prelims or the early prelims. Today I'm going to do the prelims, but still not the early prelims, because I want to. There's a few fighters I like on this. I'll slowly broaden my horizons. Let's get started. All right. First fight, we've got Nikita Krylov versus Modestas Bukauskas. I'm going with Nikita Krylov by a second round TKO. I think Nikita is a slightly higher caliber fighter than Modestas. Modestas is a little bit younger and probably, in my opinion, a bit hungrier. Nikita's taken some time off, or did take some time off, and prior to that, he was doing all right. But since he got back last year, April 2025, not so good. Both of the fighters he's lost to are pretty good, and Bukauskas is someone that I could see in the next year potentially getting a title shot, depending on how things go about. He's pretty close to top level, but, he might get a title shot. He's around that kind of, I'd say, top 5 to 8 level. And although Reyes is a bit chinny, and I think most would agree past his prime, he's a good boxer, and he landed a very, very good counter shot against Krylov when they fought. So I don't read incredibly deeply into these two losses, especially in the context of this fight, just because I don't think that Bukauskas would give either of these guys a run for their money either. And also, Krylov in the past has fought pretty good levels of competition. He's beaten Özdemir, who's very respectable. He beat Gustafsson in 2022 by round 1 KO. I mean, that's 67 seconds. I know people want to say Gustafsson was washed. I think he's about 38 now, so he would have been kind of, 34, 35, which is not that old for a light heavyweight. It's not really old at all. Perhaps he was especially damaged, but, I think it's a good win. Got decisions against some good competition. So, yeah, he's up there, and he's got a win over Walker. Nothing to write home about, but still good. I think he's quite offensively minded as a fighter. He's quite fast. It's just his defense is not intelligent enough against like the really solid strikers. Bukauskas is on a 4-fight win streak. I'll just go on his profile. I'm always a bit worried when I watch him fight, though. It's very I don't know how to describe it. It's a bit like watching like the kind of final fight scene in like a Jack Sparrow in a Pirates of the Caribbean film. It's very like all over the place. I'd never feel confident he's gonna to finish someone when he's doing well. It's scary. It's entertaining. It's very entertaining, but it's kind of scary. I'm never confident for Modestas, and I don't think any of his competition is quite as good as some of the people that Nikita Krylov is having either close or victorious performances against. Perhaps these two losses that he's had, which are, they're bad losses, they're round 1 KOs, perhaps they're telling of the direction that he's going, and this could be it, and maybe he's going to start losing to much lower levels of competition. But for me, it's too early to say that, so I'm not gonna write him out yet, and I'm gonna say he's gonna win. I don't think Modestas is sneaky enough to land something like Reyes or Bukauskas landed on him. Yeah. Next one. Ateba Gautier versus Andrey Pulyaev. Gautier is still being built up. That's fine. I think he's my age. Gautier is 23 years old, insane, and 81-inch reach at middleweight, which is terrifying. 3 first-round knockouts. I mean, the 2 of these not even 2 minutes long. I think it'll be a couple more fights before we get any sort of big resistance for Gautier. I think he's going to continue to fold people. Obviously, it depends how quick they progress him, but, he's very young and he's marketable because he's very powerful. I think they want to market him as like a mini Ngannou because I believe he's Cameroonian. His boxing's very good. He's got very good straight shots. His jabs and crosses I like a lot. He's fast, and for a young guy, he seems to be fairly patient. Although you would look at his record and think he's going in there, which he is. He's not foolish when I watch him strike. He doesn't look really bloodthirsty. We'll have to evaluate it more as he fights better people, but yeah, I'm very impressed by him so far. Andrey Pulyaev, down to pronounce that, is 1-1 in the UFC, and the one win is against a guy who's 0-2. In Klein. I think Klein's 0-2. Yeah. Not ideal. So, I mean, he could be good, maybe, but there's no proof. So I can't, I'm not going to go too deep on that. And also, a bit like I was saying, you have to consider the bigger picture. They're trying to market Ateba Gautier in a certain direction because he's marketable. They're not going to put him against an absolute monster this early on. I think Pulyaev is being fed to him. And his record is it's okay. It doesn't really prove anything. 10-3 by itself is a good record in isolation. He's another fairly young fighter, also with a long reach. But yeah, I mean, he only joined last year. He's only won once, and it's against a guy who's trash. Cool. Or not cool for Pulyaev. He's fucked. I think, do I have any other notes on this? I have a little note sheet. Oh, yeah, I forgot to say, both of these guys debuted within about 7 days of each other last year in March, which is interesting. So they would have, within a week, they both started, and now they've crossed paths, so interesting. Also, I don't know if I said, but round 1 KO. I'm going to say later in the round, but round 1 KO. Okay, last fight in the prelims. Umar Nurmagomedov versus Deiveson Figueiredo. I'm going to go with Umar Nurmagomedov by decision, probably a 30-27, in my opinion. I think Figueiredo's pretty confidently cemented where he is in the division, and he's, I think, 38, so I don't see him getting much better, and the damage is probably going to start to build up. Although I'd say he's aged gracefully, I would say, for a small fighter, because smaller fighters generally don't do well later in their career. Yeah, 38. He consistently beats the kind of 8 to 15 range in his division, but he consistently loses to top 5 fighters, Corey Sandhagen, Petr Yan, etc. He hits pretty hard, but I think Umar's quite I wouldn't say a skittish fighter, but he's quite safe. He's quite sort of optimal, and I don't think he's the kind of guy who's going to get hit by not a foolish strike, but do something foolish and get hit by a power shot from Figueiredo. I think Figueiredo is tough enough to survive, and because he's got good power, that could be a bit of a threat for Umar, so Umar perhaps won't go for a finish, and I don't think he would anyway, because he doesn't do that too much. So I think Umar Nurmagomedov by decision. Umar, I think, is probably a top 3 bantamweight. I think it's Merab, Petr Yan, and Umar. Yeah, I think they're all pretty close to one another. And he's young. I think he's hungry. Building back up after his loss to Merab. He's got his win over Mario Bautista. So, yeah, I think he'll win this and then fight another top 3 fighter. Maybe even a title shot. Okay. Done with the prelims. Arnold Allen versus Gene Silva. Very, very good fight. Looking at this now, this might be, other than the main event, but partly because the main event is a 5-rounder, other than the main event, this might be the fight I'm most excited for. Obviously, Allen is English, so, got to root for the boys. I'm going to go for Gene Silva. Wait, I just haven't got to root for the boys. Okay, well, sorry, Arnold Allen. Got to not root for the boys. I'm going with Gene Silva by decision. I was tempted to pick a late TKO for Gene Silva because he's very dangerous. But I reflected on Arnold Allen's record and he's very, very good. He's a very good fighter. I knew this, but I'm quite I've bought into the hype of Gene Silva quite a lot, even after his loss to Diego Lopez. Youssef Salal is ranked 7. Hooker, very good fighter. Round 1 TKO. That was a doctor's stoppage against Qatar. Still though, he clearly lost to Holloway, but still a 5-round fight with him. A lot of people can't do that against him. He's got a lot of experience against very good competition. Up until the past year or so, Gaethje was also a top 15 fighter. And then no shame in losing to Evloev. Also, competitive fight. He's got very good boxing. He's got good pressure. Definitely a slept-on fighter, considering how high he is in the rankings and some of the people he's fought. I'm still picking Gene Silva. I know I'm yapping about Arnold Allen just because he doesn't get enough credit. If Gene Silva had not lost to Lopez, I think I might have gone for Allen, which sounds like a really weird thing to say, but I think, I think he was getting a bit arrogant. I think he was getting a bit arrogant moving up the rankings. The way he fights is disrespectful. It's part of his personality, and, maybe that makes him better in some ways because it frustrates his opponents, but I think a humbling is not good for the people that are going to fight him in the future, namely Arnold Allen. I think if he fought a cocky Gene Silva, I think Arnold Allen maybe could get the better of him. But now that he's been brought back down to earth and he's had to reflect on what it takes to become a champion a little bit, I think he's going to win. I think he was beating, on the feet at least, he was beating Diego Lopez for the majority of their fight. He was definitely losing on the ground, but that's not really a factor in this fight because Arnold Allen is primarily a boxer in terms of what makes him dangerous and elite. If he's going to finish Gene Silva, it'll be boxing. I think Silva will be patient early on, and then I think he'll start to really piece up Arnold Allen a bit later on. Allen, I think, is good enough to not get knocked out. If this was a 5-rounder, I'd be tempted to go for a late, maybe round 4 TKO over Arnold Allen. But I'm going to go with a decision because it's a 3-rounder. Yeah. Next fight on the card, Natalia Silva versus Rose Namajunas. I'm going to go with Natalia Silva by a 30-27 decision. I'm really impressed by Natalia's movement. She's a little bit skittish, but, you got to do what you got to do to win. I think if Rose was ever going to win this fight, it would have to be a knockout, which I don't think Natalia is ever going to put herself in a position to get hit with something crazy like a head kick. Natalia is undefeated in the UFC, I believe. Let me check. Win. Yeah. Undefeated. Only 28. she just gives that vibe of a new generation fighter that's gonna bring some new stuff to the table. I don't really think that Rose has kind of deteriorated. I think she's still a solid fighter, but I think she'll just kind of lose a quite boring decision here, where she just can't quite sink her teeth into, I've forgotten her name, Silva. But I still think she competes at a very high level. Women's MMA is very, very weird. The top couple of fighters in each division, sometimes one, are like so much better than everybody else, so much better. And then then that top fighter who beats everyone easily randomly loses to like a top 8 for some reason, and then you're like, you can't do power scaling in women's MMA. It's impossible. But yeah, I still think she's good. I don't think she's at her highest heights. I don't think she's ever going to be doing stuff like this again. But I think because of Silva's kind of low commitment style, I don't think she's particularly dangerous for Rose. I think she's just going to kind of avoid her, kick her a lot, irritate her, and win a 30-27 decision. Yeah, that's about it. Next one. Waldo, Cortes, Acosta versus Derrick Lewis. I'm going to go with Cortes Acosta by a decision. I think Lewis usually wins by goofiness and obviously his unbelievable power. But if he's fighting someone who's not an idiot on the feet, I think usually they can beat him. I think Cortes is smart enough and tough enough to take the shots that Derrick does throw and not walk into the absolutely devastating ones that he baits people with, which he often gets finishes with. Often he gets hurt or something like that, and then they'll come to finish him or something along those lines, and then he'll throw an absolute codswallop shot and destroy them. I think Cortes is smart enough to avoid that. Derrick's pretty tough, though. He doesn't really get finished very often. So I think he'll survive, but I think he's going to lose a decision. I'm going to say a 29-28 for Waldo, Cortes, Acosta. Okay, moving on to the co-main event, Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong. I'm going to go with Sean O'Malley by a 30-27 decision victory. I think Song Yadong has kind of cemented himself as someone who consistently loses. I'm saying the exact same thing that I said for Umar versus Figueiredo. He's kind of cemented himself as someone that loses to the top 5, but beats the kind of 8 to 15 range. It's true. He's younger, so he does have more time to improve, but Yadong is not somebody that every time I watch, I'm like, ooh, let's see what he's added to his game. I'm curious, but it doesn't feel like I notice a leveling up every time I watch him. That being said, the top 5-ish, the top 5 at bantamweight are so good, man. They're such good fighters. Obviously, O'Malley isn't quite as well-rounded as some of these other guys, but his striking is very, very good, which also brings me on to... I just want to talk about Sean O'Malley's fight against Pulyaev. I know a lot of people talk about the fact that it was a robbery, and I would give Nyan the win as well, but even the fact that he had like a close striking match with him and won rounds won one round in a lot of people's opinion, but even that is good. That's very good. Song Yadong only has one submission, which I think was his first one in the UFC, like his first fight was a submission win. So I wouldn't say he's a massive threat on the ground. He's a decent wrestler, but I don't think it's enough that, Sean isn't just gonna piece him up on the feet. I think he's fairly hittable. He's tough, but he's a bit of a fire hydrant. and not just in the way that he's built, but also the amount that he moves. I think this is going to be a bit of a punching bag fight. I think early on, Sean might be a little bit more tentative, but in the later rounds, I think he's going to start to tee off on Song. He's very, very long. His boxing's good. I don't think Yadong is going to come out with some crazy adaptation to get around it, but also Yadong is too tough to be finished. So, confident decision by Sean O'Malley. And last but not least, the main event, Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett. I'm going to go with Paddy Pimblett by a late finish. I'll say a round 4 TKO, ground and pound, or maybe a submission. I think this fight's going to be pretty competitive, although I will say I've been impressed with Paddy Pimblett's improvement. I really didn't rate him around the time that he fought Tony Ferguson. I thought he was slow, quite hittable, very stationary, and this is something he still does, but his chin was up a lot. That's something he definitely needs to work on. I think his offensive boxing and offensive striking is good. It's just defensively, like I said, he's hittable. He's got good pressure, and he's got good straight shots, good jabs and crosses. I think because of his age and determination, I don't think his chin is going to be a huge factor right now in his career until he fights Topuria, if he fights Topuria. Gaethje still hits pretty hard, and I think he's probably going to have a few shots which rock Paddy, which could be like a kind of a career first to have that quite scary moment, but I don't think it's going to be enough to end the fight. Gaethje, I think, is getting a little bit slower, not too much. The main thing that concerns me in this fight, and I think the reason I'm betting on Paddy mainly, I'm not betting money, but I'm expecting him to win, is because of the grappling. Apparently, Gaethje has a wrestling base, some people say. You wouldn't know it if you watched him. Gaethje has these kind of Jack Sparrow-esque scrambles and takedown defense maneuvers, whatever you want to call them. Shenanigans, I think, would be a better word. Which are entertaining and look cool when he pulls them off. But when he doesn't, he looks like a moron. And when he doesn't, he gets stuck on the ground. I really don't rate Justin Gaethje's jiu-jitsu. I think it's awful. Again, his takedown defense, it's not bad. It's all right. But when he's on the ground, it's terrible. You could argue that Paddy Pimblett did better in the grappling against Michael Chandler than Charles Oliveira did, and they only fought him about 6 months apart, which is, that's definitely worth considering. Charles couldn't get a finish on the ground, but Paddy Pimblett did. Even if Paddy doesn't get a finish, I think he can still do pretty nasty damage, enough to get a decision win. How I see this fight going is it's going to be pretty close in the first few rounds, I think, on the feet. I think Gaethje is going to get tired, and perhaps he'll avoid grappling exchanges early on, be able to get to his feet. But later, when he's tired, I think Paddy's going to keep him down a bit better and then really start to pile on some nasty ground and pound. Paddy's been improving a lot each fight. I'm very impressed by it. He's on the up. Gaethje's on the down. Yeah, that's about it. I've got Paddy Pimblett by a late finish victory, probably on the ground. I could see Gaethje getting a decision maybe if Paddy can't wrestle him. But in a 5-rounder, I think at some point Justin Gaethje's going to have a footwork mistake, or Paddy will get at least one takedown, and the damage he'll do will be enough to secure the victory, or he'll just finish him. Okay, guys, those were my predictions for UFC 324. I hope you enjoyed, and have a good day.